I greeted a blind visitor using sign language, and what I discovered next shattered my heart into 1,000 pieces before putting it back together again. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, stay with me. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I would. And if you, for a second, feel like this sounds familiar, I just ask that you leave a like and subscribe. It will help me to keep unburdening my soul. My name is Emily Miller. I'm 68 years old, and I live in a small apartment on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Every morning, I wake up at 6 o'clock sharp, even though I have no real reason to anymore. It's just the habit of 40 years working at a dry cleaner, of making breakfast for a family that is no longer here, of living for others who stopped needing me a long time ago. My apartment smells of lavender and loneliness. The walls are filled with photographs that no one else looks at. My 3 children when they were little, smiling in school uniforms that I used to iron every Sunday. My late husband, Henry, with his proud mustache and eyes full of promises that death took away 10 years ago. My grandchildren, who now have lives that don't include visits to Grandma. That April morning, an ordinary Tuesday that would become extraordinary, I was watering my geraniums on the small fire escape landing. My hands trembled slightly, as they always have since I turned 65. Arthritis, the doctor at the community clinic told me, as if giving the pain a name made it more bearable. I was wearing my floral housecoat, the one my daughter Sarah once called frumpy during her last visit 6 months ago, when she only came because she needed me to watch the kids while she and her husband went to Miami. The morning sun cast a golden light on Broadway, making the city seem less hostile. I could hear the constant hum of traffic, the whistle of the traffic cop on the corner, the call of the hot dog vendor who passes by every day at 11:30. They were the sounds of a life that went on no matter how insignificant I felt in the middle of it. That's when I saw him. A young man was walking on the sidewalk across from my building, navigating with a white cane that tapped rhythmically against the pavement. He looked to be in his early 30s, wearing a light blue shirt that clung to his back in the heat, and dark glasses that hid his eyes. His face was set in a look of absolute concentration, each step measured with the precision of someone who has learned to navigate a world designed for others. But there was something else that caught my attention. On his backpack, hanging from a chain, was a small pin with 2 intertwined hands, the universal symbol for sign language. My heart gave a strange lurch, as if something dormant inside me had suddenly awakened. You see, I learned American Sign Language almost 40 years ago. My younger sister, Grace, was born deaf. Throughout our childhood and youth, I was her voice in a world that refused to listen. I learned to speak with my hands before she turned 5, and together we created a secret universe where words floated in the air without needing sound. When Gracie died 15 years ago, hit by a city bus on Amsterdam Avenue, something in me died too. My hands fell silent. There was no one left who needed my special language. But that day, seeing that young blind man with the sign language pin, something stirred inside me. Without thinking, I rushed down the stairs of my building. My knees protested with every step, but I didn't care. When I reached the street, he was a few feet away, waiting at the corner to cross. The light was red, but the traffic noise was deafening, confusing. I approached him slowly, not wanting to startle him. My heart was pounding with a force I hadn't felt in years. I raised my trembling hands, those hands stained with age spots and marked by decades of hard work, and formed the signs I hadn't used in so long. "Good morning? Do you need help crossing?" I didn't know if he could see me. I didn't know if this made any sense, but I did it anyway. The young man stopped. He turned his head in my direction, as if he could feel my presence. Slowly, very slowly. He raised his own hands and replied, "I can see shadows and movement. I see your hands." I was paralyzed. He could see, not completely blind, but partially sighted, and he was responding in perfect, fluid, beautiful sign. "I'm deaf," he continued signing. "Deaf and blind. Usher syndrome. I lost my hearing at 12, and my sight has been gradually going since I was 20. No one ever signs to me on the street. Ever. Who are you?" Tears started rolling down my cheeks uncontrollably. My hands were shaking so much I could barely form the words. "I'm Emily. My sister was deaf. I saw you and I couldn't help myself. It's been years since I've spoken with my hands. He smiled. It was the most genuine smile I had seen in years, full of a joy that seemed impossible for someone in his situation. I'm Daniel, and you just made this the best day I've had in months. Do you live nearby? I nodded, though he couldn't see it clearly, so I quickly signed. In the building behind you, the one with the green door. Would you mind if I came to visit you sometime? It's rare to find someone who knows sign. Most people just shout at me, as if volume could break through my deafness. My throat tightened. Visit me? Me? My own children didn't visit. My grandchildren didn't know my address. My daughter Sarah had told me last month, during a hurried call, "Mom, you're not young anymore. You have to understand that our lives are very busy. We can't be running over to see you every time you feel lonely." And now this stranger, this young man I had just met on the street, was asking for permission to visit me. It would be an honor, I signed, and I said it with so much emotion that my hands practically danced in the air. We crossed Broadway together that day. I described the obstacles, the potholes, the street vendors taking up half the sidewalk with their fruit and juice stands. He told me about his job at a training center for people with multiple disabilities, where he taught Braille and mobility techniques. We talked for 20 minutes that felt like 20 seconds. When we said goodbye at the door of my building, Daniel gave me his number and asked for mine. "Use WhatsApp to text me," he signed. "I have a screen reader that reads everything to me through vibrations I can feel." I floated up the stairs. For the first time in 10 years, since Henry died, I felt like someone had truly seen me, not as the mother who was supposed to give money, or the grandmother who was supposed to babysit for free, or the burdensome old woman who smelled of Bengay and told boring stories about the past, but as Emily, as a whole person. That night, I sat at my small kitchen table, where I had eaten alone so many times, and practiced signs in the air. My fingers remembered every movement, every gesture, every nuance of that beautiful language I thought I had buried with my sister Grace. I had no idea that this chance encounter would change everything, that this young deaf and blind man would give me more than my own family had denied me for years, and that his presence in my life would unleash a storm that would expose painful truths I had spent years avoiding. But for that night, I just felt hope, and it was enough. Daniel started visiting me every Wednesday afternoon. He would arrive at 4 o'clock exactly, knocking on the door with a particular rhythm I came to recognize. 3 soft knocks, a pause, 2 more knocks. It was his way of telling me, "It's me," without needing words. I would make coffee with a hint of cinnamon, the kind my grandmother in Savannah used to make when I was a girl, and buy pastries from Mr. Rodriguez's bakery 2 blocks down. Donuts, croissants, muffins. I'd arrange them on the porcelain plate that had been my mother's, the one with little blue flowers on the edge that survived 3 moves and 40 years of marriage. We would sit in my small living room, where the afternoon light streamed through the window, creating golden patterns on the hardwood floor. My hands came back to life in those moments. I told him about my sister Grace, about how we used to invent secret signs to talk about the boys we liked without Mom understanding. He told me about his childhood in upstate New York, about gradually losing his hearing and then his sight, about the feeling of the world closing in around him like a room where the lights go out one by one. "But you," he would sign, with a smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes hidden behind the dark glasses. "You are like a window that opened when I thought they were all sealed shut." Those words made me cry, every time, because my own children made me feel the exact opposite, like a door that should remain closed. The first time my son Charlie called during one of Daniel's visits, I was so happily showing him my old photographs that I almost didn't hear the phone. When I finally answered, his voice sounded irritated. "Mom, why aren't you answering? I've been calling you for half an hour." "Sorry, honey. I was busy with... I need you to do me a favor. Patricia has a conference in Chicago this weekend and the babysitter got sick. Can you watch the kids from Friday night until Sunday?" He didn't ask how I was. He didn't ask if I was able. He just assumed. "Charlie, this weekend I had plans." "Plans? Mom, what plans could you possibly have? Besides, they're your grandkids. Or do you not care about them anymore?" That line. That damn line they always use to manipulate me. As if refusing something meant I didn't love my grandchildren, as if setting boundaries was the same as being unloving. I looked at Daniel, who was sitting in my armchair, waiting patiently. I had planned to take him to the Met on Saturday, a place he had never visited, and that I wanted to describe with my hands, to create the shapes of the pyramids and statues with my fingers in the air. I can't this weekend, Charlie. The silence on the other end of the line was icy. What do you mean you can't? Mom, you're their grandmother. It's your obligation. It's not an obligation. It's a pleasure. But this weekend I have other commitments. Commitments? His tone turned mocking. What commitments can a retired old lady have? Watching your soap operas? Watering your plants? Every word was a slap. I bit my lip until I tasted the metallic tang of blood. I have a friend visiting, and... A friend? The disbelief in his voice was insulting. Mom, be careful. At your age, there are a lot of scammers who prey on lonely people. How did you meet him? Is he asking you for money? It's not like that, Charlie. Daniel is a very polite young man who... Daniel? He has a name already? Mom, please. Don't be naive. I'm coming over this Thursday to meet this so-called friend. I'm not going to let you get swindled. He hung up without saying goodbye. The phone felt dead in my hand, heavy as a stone. Daniel had been watching my face. Though he couldn't see my expressions clearly, he had learned to read body language, the tensions, the silences heavy with meaning. Family trouble? He signed gently. I nodded, forgetting for a moment that I needed to use my hands. I quickly signed. My son. He doesn't understand that I can have my own life. Does he treat you like a child? Worse. He treats me like a resource. A bank. A free babysitter. Ah! Daniel leaned forward, his hands moving with that particular elegance of people for whom sign is their primary language. Emily, when was the last time they visited just to see you, without asking for anything? The question cut through me like a knife. I searched my memory. When? Last year? 2 years ago? I couldn't remember a single recent occasion when any of my 3 children had come just to spend time with me, to ask how I was, to share a coffee without the visit ending with a request. Alone, babysitting, cooking for some family gathering where I ended up serving instead of being celebrated. I don't remember. I finally signed, and the tears began to fall uncontrollably. Daniel got up from the armchair, and, with that extraordinary ability of people who navigate the world without full sight, walked directly to me. He knelt in front of my chair and took my hands in his. You deserve better, he signed slowly, emphasizing each word. You deserve to be loved unconditionally, without having to earn it, without having to pay for it with your time, your money, your peace. That night after Daniel left, I sat in the darkness of my living room. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat there, watching the shadows that the streetlights cast on my old furniture. On the wall opposite me hung a family photograph taken 15 years ago, at my eldest daughter Monica's wedding. We were all there. Henry in his navy blue suit, me in my peach-colored dress that cost me 3 months of savings, my 3 children smiling, my young grandchildren playing at my feet. We looked happy. We looked like a family. When did it all break? Or was it always broken and I just refused to see it? I remembered the first birthday I spent alone after Henry died. I turned 60. None of my children came. Monica sent flowers with a card that said, "Sorry, Mom. Work is crazy." Charlie didn't even call until 3 days later. And Sarah, my baby, my favorite, sent me a text. "Happy B-Day, Mom. See you soon." Soon never came. I baked a cake just for myself that day. German chocolate, Henry's favorite. I placed a single candle in the center and lit it. I sat in front of that cake for a full hour, watching the wax melt and form a small white puddle on the frosting. I didn't blow out the candle. I didn't make a wish. What for? Wishes were for people who still had hope. Thursday came too quickly. Charlie showed up at 5 in the afternoon, without giving an exact time, as he always did. He knocked on the door insistently, loud bangs that made the frame vibrate. When I opened it, he didn't even greet me. His eyes scanned my small apartment like a detective searching for evidence of a crime. "Where is he?" he asked without preamble. "Who?" "This Daniel. Your supposed friend. He doesn't come today. Wednesdays. Then I'll wait until next Wednesday." He plopped down in my armchair, the same one where Daniel sat, and pulled out his phone. I'm going to meet this guy and find out what he wants from you. Charlie, it's not— Mom, be quiet. I know more about these things than you do. I've seen stories on the news. Elderly women who lose their life savings because they trust anyone who gives them a little attention. Elderly women. As if I were senile. As if at 68 I had lost the ability to discern, to feel, to choose my own friends. It has nothing to do with money, Charlie. Daniel is— We'll see what he is. In the meantime, I have something for you. He pulled an envelope from his briefcase and dropped it on my coffee table. It's the tuition bills for Andrea and Sebastian. Everything went up this semester. I need you to help with half. There it was. The real reason for his visit. He hadn't come to protect me. He came to ask for money while accusing me of being naive. I opened the envelope. $2,000. Half would be $1,000. Almost my entire pension for the month. Charlie, I've had a lot of medical expenses this month. My blood pressure medication, Mom, they're your grandkids. Are you really going to deny them their education? Besides, what else are you going to spend it on? You don't have a social life. You don't go out. You don't travel. I don't have a social life because you all took it from me. I wanted to scream. I don't go out because every dollar I save ends up in your pockets. I don't travel because every time I mention the idea of seeing the coast of Maine again, you remind me of all the obligations I have to the family. I can give you $300, I finally said, my voice broken. Charlie made a disgusted face. $300 doesn't cover anything, but fine. It's better than nothing. Bring it on Sunday when you come to watch the kids. I already told you I can't this weekend. His face hardened. He stood up from the armchair abruptly. You know what, Mom? You're disappointing me. Ever since Dad died, you've become selfish. You only think about yourself. And now it turns out you have time for strangers, but not for your own family. He left, slamming the door so hard it made the picture frames on the wall tremble. I stood in the middle of my living room, shaking, not from fear, from rage. A rage that had been building for years, for decades, since that first time Monica yelled at me because I wouldn't give her money for a designer handbag when she was in her 20s, with a job that could perfectly well pay for it. Since Charlie stopped calling me Mom with affection and started using the word as a tool for manipulation. Since Sarah told me that I had already lived my life, and now it was my turn to let them live theirs. I went to my room and opened the drawer of my nightstand. There, under some old letters and prayer cards, I kept a notebook. It was my secret ledger, where I wrote down every time my children asked me for money, every broken promise, every forgotten birthday. The pages were filled with numbers and dates that told a story I had refused to read in its entirety. In the last 5 years, I had given my children more than $25,000. Money they never paid back. Money I sacrificed from my own needs, my medications, my small pleasures, the trips I never took, the life I never lived. And in return, what had I received? Obligations, demands, disrespect. I closed the notebook and clutched it to my chest. Something inside me began to break, but not like glass, clean and final. It was breaking like dry earth after years of drought, with deep cracks revealing everything that had been buried underneath. The following Wednesday, Daniel arrived as always. 3 soft knocks, a pause, 2 more. But when I opened the door, my face must have shown something different because his hands immediately began to move with concern. What happened? You feel different. I didn't even know where to begin. I let him in and made the coffee, but my hands were shaking so much I spilled cinnamon all over the counter. Daniel heard it and came into the kitchen. Let me help, he signed, but I just shook my head, forgetting again that he needed me to use my hands to communicate. Finally, we sat down. The coffee grew cold between us as I told him everything through signs that became increasingly frantic. Charlie's call, his visit, the accusation that Daniel was a scammer, the constant demands for money, the years of broken promises. Daniel listened in complete silence. When I finished, he sat motionless for several seconds. Then his hands moved slowly, with a sadness I could feel even without seeing his eyes. Emily, do you know what the saddest part of all this is? It's that they don't see you. They're blind, but not like me. They've chosen not to see you. Those words broke me. I cried so hard my whole body shook. Daniel got up and hugged me, and in that hug, I found more comfort than I had in all the years since Henry's death. I want you to meet someone, he signed when I had calmed down a bit. A friend of mine. Her name is Teresa. She went through something similar with her family. Maybe she can help you see things more clearly. I wasn't sure I wanted to meet anyone else. It was humiliating enough to admit to Daniel how pathetic my life was. But I agreed because honestly, what else did I have left? Teresa came the following Friday. She was a woman in her 70s, with pure white hair pulled back in an elegant bun, and hazel eyes that seemed to see right through all your defenses. She brought a lemon pound cake she had baked herself. Daniel told me about you, she said, as I poured chamomile tea into the good cups I saved for special occasions that never came. And I saw myself 10 years ago. For the next 2 hours, Teresa told me her story. She had 4 children who had treated her like an ATM for decades. When her husband died and left a considerable inheritance, her children didn't even wait for the funeral to end before they started fighting over the money. They sued her, accused her of hiding assets, and made her feel like a criminal for wanting to keep something for herself. One day, Teresa said, holding her teacup with firm hands that didn't tremble like mine, I woke up in the hospital. I'd had a heart attack. Do you know who was by my side? No one. My children were too busy. It was a nurse who held my hand while I waited to find out if I would live or die. And what did you do? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. I made the hardest and most liberating decision of my life. I cut them off. All of them. I changed my will, blocked their numbers, sold the house where I kept all the memories, and moved into a small apartment. I kept what was essential, and my dignity. Don't you miss them? Teresa looked at me with a mixture of sadness and peace that I didn't understand until much later. I miss the idea of what they could have been, but you can't miss something that never really existed. They never loved me, Emily. They loved what I could give them. There's a huge difference. Her words echoed in my head for days. Was that true in my case too? Did my children love me? Or did they love what I represented to them? The following Sunday was my birthday, number 69. I hadn't said anything to my children, but deep down, with that foolish hope that never completely dies, I thought maybe they would remember. Maybe this year would be different. I woke up early and made myself a special breakfast. Pancakes, bacon, and fresh orange juice. I put the radio on an oldies station, playing the songs Henry and I used to dance to in the kitchen when the kids were little and life seemed full of promise. I waited. I checked my phone every 10 minutes. Nothing. At noon, Monica sent a message to the family group chat. Hey guys, don't forget the school's holiday party is next weekend. Mom, we need you to make your famous mac and cheese for 50 people. Can you? My birthday. It was my birthday. And she didn't even mention it. Charlie replied, Perfect. Mom, I'll also remind you that you still owe the remaining $700 for tuition. Sarah put a thumbs up emoji. No one said happy birthday. No one asked how I was. Not even a good morning. I stared at the phone until the screen went dark. Then I did something I had never done before. I turned it off completely. That afternoon, Daniel arrived with Teresa. They were carrying a small chocolate cake with colorful candles and a bag full of goodies they had bought at the farmer's market. I know it's your birthday, Daniel signed with a huge smile. Teresa helped me find out. I hope you don't mind that we came unannounced. I broke down right there, in the doorway. I cried like I hadn't cried in years. 2 strangers, 2 people I had known for only a few weeks, remembered my birthday when my own children forgot. We sang Happy Birthday, with Teresa singing in her sweet voice while Daniel tapped out the rhythm on the table. I blew out the candles and, for the first time in years, I made a real wish. I wished for courage, I told them afterward. Courage to do what I need to do. And what is that? Teresa asked. I don't know yet, but I feel like something has to change. That night, after they left, I turned my phone back on. There were 3 messages. Monica. Mom? Did you see my message? I need an answer about the mac and cheese. Charlie. Mom, answer. It's important. Sarah. Mom, Patricia told me Charlie came to see you and you got difficult about the money. Don't be like that. Family comes first. Family comes first. The phrase they had used my whole life to make me feel guilty, to manipulate me, to drain every last drop of my energy, money, and self-esteem. I found Monica's number in my contacts. My finger hovered over the call button for several minutes. My heart was beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. Finally, I pressed it. She answered on the fifth ring, her voice irritated. "Hello? Mom, what took you so long to answer?" "Monica," I said, and my voice sounded strangely calm. "Do you know what day it is today?" "What? Mom, I'm busy. Is this about the mac and cheese? Because I need—" "Today is my birthday." Silence. A long, uncomfortable silence that revealed more than 1,000 words. "Oh, Mom, I'm so sorry. It's just that I've had so much work and—" "Monica, when was the last time you asked me how I am? Not because you need something, just because you care." Mom, don't start with your drama. You know we love you. It's just that life is hard for everyone. For everyone? Or just for you? What's wrong with you? Why have you been so weird lately? I'm not making the mac and cheese, Monica." "What?" "But Mom, I already told all the teachers that I am not making it." And I hung up. For the first time in my life, I hung up on my daughter. My hands were shaking violently. My heart felt like it was going to burst out of my chest. But in the midst of the fear and anxiety, there was something else. A tiny flicker of something I had forgotten existed. Pride. The phone started ringing immediately. Monica calling back. Then Charlie, then Sarah. The family group chat exploded with messages. "What's wrong with Mom? She's acting super weird. Is someone manipulating her? That Daniel guy is probably putting ideas in her head." I let the phone ring and ring until the battery died. Then I made myself some chamomile tea, sat in my armchair, and looked out the window at the city lights twinkling in the night. Teresa was right. You couldn't miss something that never really existed. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to start building a life that was genuinely mine, even if it meant losing the family that had never really been family. The next few days were a nightmare. My children didn't stop calling, but now their voices carried no genuine concern. They carried demands disguised as love. On Tuesday morning, Charlie showed up at my door unannounced. This time he brought his wife, Patricia, a thin woman with a sharp gaze who always looked at me as if I were a piece of old furniture cluttering up her perfect life. "Mom, we need to talk," Charlie said, pushing the door open before I could even invite them in. "Patricia and I are very worried about you." Worried? That word again. "I'm fine, Charlie." "No, you're not fine. Look at this place." Patricia gestured dismissively at my living room. "It's a mess. Dusty. And you? Mom, when was the last time you went to a hair salon?" I looked around my apartment. Yes, there were a few dishes in the sink from yesterday. Yes, I hadn't dusted in a few days. But I had been busy. Busy living. Busy rediscovering what it meant to have friends. To have conversations that didn't end in requests for money or favors. My home is how I want it to be. Charlie and Patricia exchanged a look I recognized immediately. The same look they exchanged when they thought I didn't understand something important. "Mom," Charlie sat down without being invited, taking my armchair as if it were his throne. "Patricia and I have been talking. We think maybe you need help." "What kind of help?" "Professional. Psychological." Patricia perched on the edge of the sofa, careful not to let her immaculate white pants touch too much of the fabric. "Your erratic behavior, these new and strange friendships, your refusal to fulfill your family obligations, they're all signs that something isn't right. Family obligations." The rage began to rise in my throat like bile. "Is making mac and cheese for your kids' school an obligation? You're their grandmother. Of course it's your obligation to help. And what is your obligation to me, Charlie? When was the last time you helped me with anything?" His face hardened. "I give you money when you need it. You give me, or you loan it to me and then charge me with guilt and reproaches." "Mom, that's enough." Patricia stood up, approaching me with the expression she used on her children when they threw tantrums. "You're being irrational. Clearly that man, that Daniel, is filling your head with nonsense. What does he want from you? Your apartment? Your savings? Daniel doesn't want anything. He's my friend." "Men aren't friends with old women for no reason," Patricia spat. He's either gay, a con artist, or has some mental problem. No normal person would waste their time with. She stopped, but the damage was done. With what? With an old woman like me? The words came out cold, sharp. Finish the sentence, Patricia. I didn't say that. But you thought it. You both think it. That I'm so insignificant, so boring, so useless, that no one would want my company unless they were trying to take advantage of me. Mom, you're twisting everything. Charlie stood up, grabbing my arm with more force than necessary. Listen to me carefully. Either you end this ridiculous friendship, or we're going to have to take more serious measures. Measures? What measures? We can talk to a lawyer. See if you're fit to make your own decisions. Maybe you need someone to manage your finances. The world stopped. They were threatening to have me declared incompetent, to take away my autonomy, to turn me into a legal prisoner of my own children. Get out, I whispered. What? Get out of my house, now. Mom, don't be stubborn. Get out! I screamed with a force I didn't know I had. Get out of my house! Get out of my life! Charlie recoiled, genuinely surprised. He had never heard me scream. In 41 years of being his mother, I had never raised my voice like that. This isn't over, Patricia said, grabbing her purse with sharp movements. You're going to regret treating us this way. I already regret a lot of things. But throwing you out today won't be one of them. They left, slamming the door. The silence that followed was so thick I could feel it pressing on my chest. I sank into the armchair and cried. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of rage, of frustration, of years and years of swallowing everything, of smiling when they insulted me, of accepting when they humiliated me, of giving when they demanded. The phone rang. It was Monica. What did you do to Charlie? He just called me crying, saying you treated him horribly. I told him the truth. The truth? What truth, Mom? That I'm tired. Tired of being your bank. Tired of being your free babysitter. Tired of existing only to serve you. Oh, for God's sake, you're being dramatic. No one treats you like that. No? Monica, do you know how much money I've loaned you in the last 5 years? Loaned, Mom. I'm going to pay it back. When? Give me a date. Just one. Silence. That's what I thought. You have no intention of paying it back. You never did. Mom, you're our mother. You're supposed to help us. I already helped you. I raised you. I fed you. I educated you. I sacrificed my dreams so you could chase yours. When is it enough, Monica? When do you stop taking everything from me? I can't believe you're being so selfish. That word. Selfish. They called me selfish for wanting to keep something for myself, for refusing to be devoured any longer. You know what, Monica? You're right. I am selfish, and I'm going to keep being selfish. I hung up. I immediately blocked her number. Then I blocked Charlie's, and Patricia's, and after a moment's thought, Sarah's too, who hadn't said much but hadn't defended me either. My contact list was terrifyingly empty, but strangely, I felt lighter. I couldn't sleep that night. I paced back and forth in my small apartment, my mind replaying years of moments I had ignored, justified, rationalized as tough love or an imperfect family. I remembered when Charlie was 8 and broke the neighbor's window playing baseball. Henry wanted to punish him, but I defended him. He's just a boy, I said. I paid for the window with money I had saved to buy a pair of shoes I desperately needed. I wore the old ones for 6 more months. I remembered when Monica was 15 and told me she hated me because I couldn't buy her the designer dress all her friends had for the prom. I cried all night. The next day, I pawned my gold chain, the one my mother had given me when I turned 18, and bought her the damn dress. Monica didn't even say thank you. I remembered when Sarah, my baby, got married and didn't want Henry and me in the main wedding photos because, according to her, we didn't fit the aesthetic of the wedding. We were seated at a table in the back with the last-minute guests. Henry died 2 months later. Those were the last photos we have together, blurry and dark, taken from a distance. All those memories I had stored in some dark corner of my mind now spilled out like poison. At 3 a.m, I made a decision. I went to my closet and pulled out an old suitcase, the kind with metal clasps and a floral fabric lining. Inside, I kept important documents: my birth certificate, my ID, the deed to my apartment, my Medicare card, and something else: a bank book for an account I had secretly opened 3 years ago, when I started to suspect my children had no intention of ever paying me back. Every month, I'd set aside $100, sometimes only $50, whatever I could hide from their constant demands. In that account, there was $5,000. It wasn't much, but it was mine, completely mine. I also took out the will Henry and I had made. In it, my apartment and my savings were divided equally among my 3 children. I looked at that paper for a long time, thinking of all the nights Henry and I had stayed up late, planning how to secure our children's future. I tore the will into tiny pieces, methodically, one by one, until no piece was bigger than a postage stamp. The next morning, I called Daniel. We used a voice-to-text app so he could understand me. "Emily, are you okay? It's 7 in the morning. I need you to go somewhere with me. It's important." "Where?" "To a lawyer's office. I'm going to make a new will, and I want you to be my witness." There was a long pause. "Emily, are you sure? Your kids are going to—" "My kids will have to accept it. This is my life, Daniel. My life, and I'm going to live it how I choose. Then I'll be there." "What time?" 10 o'clock. At the entrance to the 72nd Street subway station. When I hung up, my hands were shaking, but not from fear, from freedom. Outside, the sun was beginning to rise over New York City. The streets were filling with people rushing to their jobs, their lives, their routines. The hot dog vendor was shouting his call. The birds were singing in the trees along the avenue. And I, Emily Miller, at 69 years old, was about to start living for the first time. Daniel was on time, as always. I saw him coming out of the subway with his white cane, moving through the crowd with the confidence that only comes from years of navigating a world not designed for him. He was wearing a cream-colored shirt and dark pants. He had combed his hair carefully. When I approached and gently touched his arm, he smiled in that way that lit up his whole face. "You're nervous," he signed after taking my hand. "I can feel your pulse. It's very fast." "I'm scared," I admitted with trembling hands. "Of your children? Of myself? Of what this means? Of not being able to go back?" Daniel squeezed my hand firmly. "Sometimes not being able to go back is exactly what we need." The lawyer was a man in his 50s, with thick glasses and a kind expression. His office smelled of old paper and fresh coffee. There were diplomas on the walls and pictures of his family: a smiling wife, 2 teenage sons, a golden retriever. A family that looked genuine. A family that maybe did love each other unconditionally. "Mrs. Miller," he said, reviewing the documents I had brought, "are you certain about this decision? I understand you have 3 children and—" "I am completely certain. I must inform you that your legal heirs can contest the will if they believe it was made under duress or—" "I am not under duress. For the first time in years, I am making a completely free decision." My voice sounded firmer than I expected. "I want to leave everything to the American Association of the Deafblind. My apartment, my savings, everything." The lawyer glanced at Daniel, who was sitting beside me, and then back at me. "And the gentleman? He is my friend and my witness. He receives nothing. This is not to benefit him. It's to help people who truly need it, people that society has abandoned. Like my children abandoned me," I wanted to add, but I swallowed the words. The process took 2 hours. I signed papers, stated my will, answered questions about my mental and physical state. The lawyer even had me solve some simple mental exercises to prove I was of sound mind. When it was all over, I held in my hands the document that would change everything. My new will, legal and binding. "There's a copy for you and another that will be filed here," the lawyer explained. "If at any point you change your mind—" "I won't change my mind." We left the lawyer's office at noon. The sun was high and the heat was intense, but I didn't mind. We walked to a small restaurant in the West Village that served amazing barbecue. Daniel had never tried real slow-smoked brisket. As we ate, I described every flavor, every texture, with my hands. The smoky bark, the tender meat, the tangy coleslaw. He ate slowly, savoring each bite as if it were a gift. "Do you regret it?" he asked suddenly, setting his fork down on the plate. No. Should I? They're your children, Emily. Despite everything, they were my children. But I don't know what they are now. I lowered my hands, suddenly tired. When I look at them, I no longer see the children I raised. I see strangers who use my love as currency. Do you think they could ever change? The question hit me hard. Did I want them to change? Or was it already too late? I don't know. And maybe that's the saddest truth. That I don't care anymore. That afternoon, Daniel walked me home. As we were climbing the stairs to my apartment, I heard familiar voices on the third-floor landing. My 3 children were standing in front of my door. Charlie, Monica, and Sarah. Together. A sight I hadn't seen since their father's funeral. They had clearly come with a purpose. There she is, Monica said when she saw me. Her voice was cold as ice. With her little friend. Mom, we need to talk. Charlie crossed his arms, blocking my door. This has gone on long enough. Daniel tensed beside me. I squeezed his hand to reassure him. Let me pass. This is my home. Our home, Sarah spat. Dad paid for it too. We have a right to be here. Your father died 10 years ago. This house is mine. See? Monica turned to her siblings. See how she talks? This is exactly what we were talking about. She's changed. She's being manipulated. I'm not being manipulated. I'm being myself for the first time. Charlie came down the stairs until he was level with me. His face was red with anger. Who is this guy? He said, pointing at Daniel with contempt. Your boyfriend? At your age? It's pathetic, Mom. Don't talk about him like that. Or what? You're going to finally stand up for yourself? After letting us talk to you like this your whole life, now you suddenly grow a spine? The words cut me. He was right about one thing. I had allowed them to treat me this way. I had normalized the abuse. I had called love what was clearly exploitation. Daniel, can you wait for me downstairs for a moment? I signed. He hesitated, but nodded. He went down the stairs slowly, his cane tapping on each step. When we were alone, the silence was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Mom, Sarah spoke first, her voice suddenly soft. We know you've been going through a hard time. The loneliness after Dad died. Getting older alone. We get it. It was their strategy. First Charlie with aggression. Now Sarah with emotional manipulation. I knew it well. They had done it their whole lives. I'm not alone. I have friends. But you don't have us. Monica stepped closer, taking my hand. Her fingers were cold. And that's because you pushed us away. With your erratic behavior, your mood swings, your refusal to help us when we need you. Help you? I've given you everything, and it's never enough, because you're our mother. That's your function. My function. I repeated the words as if they were poison. Is that what I am to you? A function? Mom, we don't mean it like that. Charlie sighed in exasperation. But you have to understand that your decisions affect all of us. If you're going to let strangers into your life, we need to protect what's ours. What's yours? Like what? The 3 of them exchanged glances again. That damn look they always used when they were conspiring. Like this house, Monica said finally. Like your savings. Like your pension. We are your legal heirs, Mom. You have to think about our future. There it was. The naked, brutal truth. They didn't care about me. They cared about my money, my property, my monthly pension they wanted to keep draining. I went to a lawyer today, I said calmly. All 3 of them froze. What? I made a new will. None of you get anything. The silence that followed was absolute. I could hear my own heart beating, Charlie's ragged breathing, the traffic on the street below. You're lying, Sarah whispered. I'm not lying. Everything is going to a charity. When I die, you won't get a single penny. You can't do that, Charlie yelled so loudly a neighbor peeked her head out her door. That's our inheritance. Dad worked for this house. And so did I. And now it's mine. And I'll do whatever I want with it. Monica started to cry, dramatic tears that slid down her carefully made-up cheeks. How can you do this to us? We're your blood. Your family. Blood doesn't mean anything if it's only used to be sucked out of you. You are not my family. You are my leeches. The slap came so fast I didn't see it coming. Monica had hit me. My own daughter had slapped me across the face. The sting on my cheek was intense, but the ache in my heart was worse. Not because of the hit, but because it confirmed everything I had been denying for years. "Stay away from me," I said in a shaky voice. "Stay away or I'm calling the police." "You're going to regret this," Charlie threatened as he walked down the stairs. "We're going to contest that will. We'll prove you're senile, that this man manipulated you. Try it. I have psychological evaluations from the lawyer proving I'm perfectly sane." "You're going to die alone," Sarah spat before following her siblings. "Bitter old woman. You'll die alone and no one will cry for you." They left. Their footsteps echoed on the stairs like war drums. I stood there trembling, my cheek burning and tears rolling down my face. Daniel ran back up when he heard them leave. "What happened? Are you hurt?" "I'm fine," I lied, though I wasn't. "Just help me get inside." That night, sitting in my armchair with an ice pack on my cheek, I looked at the photographs on my walls. All those pictures of a happy family that never really existed. Framed lies. Illusions hanging on walls. One by one, I took them down. Every photograph, every false memory. I piled them in a cardboard box along with the rest of the things I no longer needed. Letters they never answered. Gifts they never thanked me for. Mementos of occasions where I was invisible. Tomorrow, I would call Teresa. I would ask her how she survived those first few days after cutting off her children, how she filled the emptiness, how she found peace. Because now I understood. Peace wasn't going to come from being loved by them. It was going to come from loving myself enough to walk away. The first 2 weeks were the hardest. Waking up every morning knowing I had closed a door that might never open again. Looking at my phone and seeing 0 calls, 0 messages. The silence was deafening, but it was also liberating. Teresa came to visit 3 times a week. She brought herbal tea and oatmeal cookies she baked herself. We would sit on my small fire escape, watching life go by on the streets of the Upper West Side, and she would tell me stories of her own recovery. "The first few months I cried every night," she confessed one afternoon as the sun set over the buildings. "I felt like I had failed as a mother, that it was all my fault. And now? Now I know you can't fail at something you never had real control over. I didn't make my children who they are. They made their own choices. I just stopped letting those choices destroy me." Her words were like a balm on an open wound. Daniel still came on Wednesdays, as regular as a clock. But now he also came on Fridays and sometimes Sundays. He taught me how to use my phone better, apps that could turn text into visual signs. He took me to places in the city I had never explored. The Botanical Garden, where he described the flowers to me by their scent and texture. The Union Square Green Market, where we bought ingredients to cook together. One afternoon, while we were making a pot roast in my tiny kitchen, he stopped me in the middle of peeling a potato. "Emily, can I ask you something?" I nodded, wiping my hands on a dish towel. "Why me?" His hands moved with a vulnerability I had never seen in him. "Why did you risk losing your family for me?" The question took me by surprise. I sat down on one of the kitchen chairs, thinking about how to answer. "Because you see me," I finally signed. "You can't see me with your eyes, but you truly see me in a way they never did. You listen to me. You respect me. You treat me like I matter. You matter. A lot." Those 3 words made me cry. Daniel stood up, came around the table, and hugged me. And in that hug, I found something I had been searching for years without knowing it. Unconditional acceptance. A month after I changed the will, I received a legal summons. Charlie had made good on his threat. My 3 children were suing me, claiming I was not mentally fit to make decisions about my own estate. They were petitioning the court to declare me legally incompetent and appoint Charlie as my legal guardian. The legal letter was full of cruel words disguised as medical concern. Significant cognitive decline, erratic and irrational behavior, undue influence from third parties, a risk to herself and her assets. They painted me as a senile old woman unable to use the bathroom by herself, when I was just 69 and more clear-headed than ever. Teresa recommended her lawyer, a woman in her 40s named Jenna Ortiz, with an intelligent gaze and a firm voice. We met in her office near Columbus Circle. "I've seen cases like this hundreds of times," Jenna said as she reviewed the documents. "Children who never cared about their parents until there's money or property involved. Don't worry, Mrs. Miller. We have a very strong defense." "How can they do this to me?" I asked, my voice breaking. "How can they try to take away my freedom? Because to them, you were never a person. You were a resource. And resources don't get to decide for themselves." The words were harsh, but true. Over the next few weeks, I underwent extensive psychological evaluations. Doctors gave me tests for memory, logical reasoning, and mental health. They asked about my daily routine, my finances, my social relationships. Every evaluation confirmed the same thing. Emily Miller was in perfect mental condition to make her own decisions. The hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday in July. I arrived at the courthouse early, accompanied by Daniel, Teresa, and Jenna. My hands were shaking so much that Daniel had to hold them to calm me down. "Breathe," he signed gently. "The truth is on your side." When I entered the courtroom, I saw my 3 children sitting on the other side with their lawyer, a man in an expensive suit with an arrogant expression. Charlie looked at me with pure hatred. Monica avoided my gaze. Sarah was crying with dramatic exaggeration on her sister's shoulder. The judge was an older man with white hair and a tired expression. He had seen too many cases like this. Families destroying each other over money, children betraying parents. Love turned into a business transaction. My children's lawyer spoke first. He presented his case with carefully chosen words. My abnormal behavior, my sudden decision to change the will, my suspicious friendship with a younger man who was clearly manipulating me. "My client and his siblings," the lawyer said in a pompous voice, "simply want to protect their mother from people who seek to take advantage of her age and vulnerability. It is an act of filial love. Filial love. What an irony." When it was Jenna's turn, she stood up with a folder full of documents. "Your Honor, allow me to present evidence that completely contradicts the narrative we have just heard." She placed documents on the judge's bench. "Here are the psychological evaluations from 4 different professionals, all concluding that Mrs. Miller is of sound mind. Here is the bank history showing that in the last 5 years, Mrs. Miller has transferred more than $25,000 to her children, money that was never repaid despite being classified as loans." Charlie shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "And here," Jenna pulled out another document, "is the police report Mrs. Miller filed 2 weeks ago for assault." Her daughter Monica struck her in the face when she learned of the new will. There are photographs of the injuries. Monica turned pale. Her lawyer whispered something furiously in her ear. "Your Honor," Jenna continued, "this is not a case of a mother who needs protection. It is a case of adult children who have financially and emotionally exploited their mother for years and are now furious because she finally said no. They are attempting to use the legal system as another tool of abuse." The judge asked me to testify. I stood up on trembling legs and took a seat on the witness stand. My children's lawyer bombarded me with questions designed to make me look confused or incompetent. "Mrs. Miller, can you tell us what day it is today?" "Tuesday, July 18th, 2023. "How much money do you have in your bank account?" "Approximately $5,000. "What is your home address?" 147 Amsterdam Avenue, apartment 3B, New York, New York. Each answer was clear, precise. The lawyer was starting to get frustrated. "Mrs. Miller, don't you find it strange that a man in his 30s would want to be friends with a woman your age?" The question was designed to humiliate me, to make me feel old, undesirable, pathetic. But it didn't work anymore. I don't find it strange that someone would value my company for who I am, instead of for what I can give them. What's strange is that my own children never learned to do that. The lawyer tried another tactic. "Don't you miss your grandchildren? Doesn't it hurt you to know you will die leaving them nothing?" "I miss the idea of having grandchildren who love me, but I can't miss something I never truly had. And I would rather leave my estate to a cause that helps vulnerable people than to children who only ever saw me as a source of money." There were murmurs in the courtroom. The judge banged his gavel, calling for silence. When my testimony was over, the judge called for a 20-minute recess. I left the courtroom feeling exhausted. Daniel was waiting outside with a glass of water. "You did perfectly," he signed with a proud smile. Do you think I'll win? You've already won, Emily. No matter what the judge says. I didn't understand what he meant until we returned to the courtroom and the judge delivered his verdict. After reviewing all the evidence presented, he said in a grave voice, "This court finds that Mrs. Emily Miller is of sound mind and fully capable of making her own decisions. The petition for guardianship is denied. Court costs will be covered by the petitioners." The gavel struck. Case closed. My children stood up, furious. Charlie shot me a look of pure hatred before storming out of the room. Monica was crying, but they were tears of rage, not sadness. Sarah was the only one who paused at the door, looking at me with something that might have been remorse. But she didn't approach. She didn't say anything. She just left. Outside the courthouse, under the relentless July sun, I hugged Daniel with all my might. "Thank you," I said out loud, forgetting for a moment that he couldn't hear me. I quickly signed the words with my hands. "Thank you for seeing me when no one else did. Thank you for teaching me that family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who choose to stay when everyone else leaves." Teresa took us to celebrate at a small Italian restaurant in the village. We ate pasta and drank cold beer. We laughed until our stomachs hurt. It was the first time in years I had laughed like that. Without reservation, without fear of bothering someone, without worrying that my joy was an inconvenience to others. That night, back in my apartment, I looked at the empty walls where the family photos used to hang. The spaces didn't seem empty now. They seemed full of possibilities. I took out my phone and looked at a photo of Daniel and me at the restaurant. Him with his wide smile, me with my eyes shining with genuine happiness. I sent the photo to be printed and hung it in the center of my living room wall. The beginning of a new gallery, a gallery of people who truly loved me. 3 months after the hearing, my life had changed in ways I never imagined possible. Not overnight, not with fireworks or cinematic moments, but slowly, like a plant finally receiving water after a long drought. Daniel had introduced me to his circle of friends from the American Association of the Deafblind. They were a group of about 10 people, all navigating the world with varying degrees of sensory loss. At first, I felt intimidated, like an intruder in a space that didn't belong to me, but they welcomed me with a warmth that made me cry at the first meeting. "Anyone Daniel considers family is our family," signed a woman named Rachel, who was in her 50s and had lost her sight completely but retained some hearing. "Besides, we need more people who know ASL. Most of the world doesn't even try to learn." I became a volunteer at the association. Twice a week, I would go to their center in Chelsea and help however I could. I made coffee, organized files, but mostly, I interpreted. I served as a bridge between the hearing-sighted world and these extraordinary people whom the rest of society had decided to ignore. For the first time in my life, I felt genuinely useful. Not because someone was using me, but because I was choosing to give. And the difference was enormous. Teresa had also become part of my new life. We had formed a small club we jokingly called the Thursday Rebels. It was just the two of us at first. Older women who had decided their worth didn't depend on how much they could sacrifice for families who didn't appreciate them. One Thursday in October, Teresa arrived at my apartment with a crazy idea. "We're going on a trip," she announced, dropping a brochure on my coffee table. "A trip? Where?" "Savannah, for a week. I've wanted to go for years but never dared to travel alone." Savannah, the place where my mother was born, where I spent the summers of my childhood running barefoot through markets full of colors and scents, where I first tasted creamy grits and sweet tea, where I learned the world was bigger than the walls of our small apartment in the city had taught me. "I can't," I said automatically. "It's too expensive. And besides, what if something happens while I'm gone?" "Like what? What could happen that can't wait a week?" She was right. I no longer had children who depended on me, or rather, I no longer allowed them to pretend to depend on me only when it was convenient. I had no job. I had no obligations. I only had fear. "I'm scared," I admitted finally. "Of what?" "Of letting myself be happy. As if at any moment someone is going to show up and take it away from me." Teresa took my hands in hers, wrinkled and sun-spotted, witnesses to long and difficult lives. "Emily, that's exactly why you must go. Because you're afraid. Because for 69 years you have lived for others. It's time for you to live for you. 2 weeks later, we were on a plane to Savannah. Daniel insisted I go, even though it pained him that he couldn't join us. Go, he signed with that smile of his that lit up everything. Go and tell me everything when you get back. I want to see Savannah through your eyes and your hands. The flight was short. Teresa and I talked the whole way about our lives, our regrets, our postponed dreams. She told me about the child she never had because her husband didn't want one. I told her about the dress shop I always wanted to open but never dared because Henry said it was a waste of time. You know what's the saddest part? I said as we watched the clouds pass by the window. I thought that being a good wife and a good mother meant not having my own dreams, that my only ambition should be to make others' dreams come true. They taught us that, Teresa replied. Our generation was raised to serve, to smile while they consumed us, to feel guilty if we wanted something for ourselves. Do you think it's too late? For us? Never. As long as we're breathing, we can choose to truly live. Savannah welcomed me with impossible blue skies and cobblestone streets that my feet remembered even though my mind had forgotten the way. We stayed in a small hotel near a historic square, with a central courtyard full of purple bougainvillea climbing the old brick walls. During that week, we did whatever we wanted. We visited Bonaventure Cemetery at dawn and watched the sun rise over the Spanish moss-draped oaks. We took a low-country cooking class with a woman named Miss Hattie, who taught us to make shrimp and grits from scratch, a process that required patience and love. We browsed artisan shops and bought hand-woven sweetgrass baskets that we didn't need, but wanted simply because they were beautiful. One night, sitting at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the lit-up cathedral, Teresa raised her glass of bourbon. To the ones who survived, she said. To the ones who found the courage to leave, I replied. We toasted under the stars, two older women who were finally learning to live. On the last day in Savannah, I walked alone to the city market. I wanted to buy something special for Daniel. Among stalls of pralines and local art, I found a small workshop where a craftsman carved walking canes from wood. They were works of art, each one unique, decorated with local symbols. This one, I told the craftsman, pointing to one carved from cedar with shapes of magnolia flowers. Can you engrave it? What do you want it to say? I thought for a moment. Thank you for teaching me to fly. The craftsman smiled knowingly, as if he understood there was a whole story behind those words. When we returned to New York, I felt different, lighter, as if I had left something heavy buried among the ancient oaks of Savannah. Daniel cried when I gave him the cane. His fingers traced the carvings with reverence, feeling every detail his eyes couldn't fully see. No one has ever given me something like this, he signed. Something chosen with so much care. Something that truly sees me. You taught me that being seen has nothing to do with eyes, I replied. November arrived with its crisp air and preparations for Thanksgiving. It had always been a difficult time for me. The empty chairs at the table reminded me of everything I had lost. Everything that would never return. But this year was different. Teresa, Daniel, and I hosted a Thanksgiving dinner together in my apartment. We set up a small table with photographs of our loved ones, my Henry, my sister Grace, my parents, Daniel's adoptive parents who had loved him unconditionally, Teresa's husband who, despite his faults, had treated her with respect. Should we put up pictures of your children? Teresa asked gently. The question hit me. Technically, my children weren't gone, but the relationship was. Did they deserve a place on my table of remembrance? No, I said finally. This table is for the people who loved me, for the people who made me better. They don't qualify. We cooked a turkey and made all the fixings. Rachel and other friends from the association came that evening. My small apartment was filled with people, with laughter, with life. Someone brought a guitar. We sang old folk songs by James Taylor and Carole King. Daniel couldn't hear the music, but he felt the vibrations, and he swayed to the rhythm he perceived through the floor and the air. At some point in the evening, I found myself standing in front of the little memorial table, looking at the photograph of Henry. He was young in that picture, maybe 30, smiling with that confidence he had before life slowly chipped away at him. I'm sorry, I whispered to the photograph. I'm sorry I couldn't make our children better people. I'm sorry all that sacrifice was for nothing. But then I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was Daniel. Are you okay? I nodded, wiping away tears. Yes. I was just making peace with the past. Did you? I looked around my apartment, full of people who genuinely appreciated me. People who had chosen to be there, not because they owed me something or because I could give them something, but simply because they wanted my company. Yes, I replied. I think I did. That night, after everyone had gone home, I sat on my fire escape with a mug of hot cider and watched the city lights. I thought about my children, where they were, what they were doing. Did they think of me? Did they miss me? Or had they already moved on, found another resource, another person to drain? It didn't matter anymore, because for the first time in my life, I had moved on too. And on the other side of that door I closed, I didn't find loneliness and darkness as I had feared. I found light. I found love. I found myself. And that, I discovered, was enough.